right, so now in the last part, we basically covered what notes do you use, right? What notes do I choose? And we were talking about using melodic notes for your basis of your improvisation. Just basic for right now. We're going to get into some more advanced stuff a little bit later. But the next question is, which rhythm do I use? All right, now, there are downbeat rhythms and there are upbeat rhythms. Downbeat rhythms are rhythms that start on a downbeat. Okay? Upbeat rhythms are those that start on an upbeat. I'm going to talk more about the upbeat rhythms a little bit later, all right, in the lesson. But for right now, let's just start with some simple rhythms. Now, what I like to do is I like to go through and use a vocalization approach. So the eighth notes, I call them di-ba, and the quarter notes, I call them da. Right, this is something that I did in the Piano Basics and in the Jazz Kids series. Right, you can read all about that, and there's plenty of examples in those books. In fact, every chapter has an example of vocalizing rhythms when we go through triplets and 16th notes and whatnot. Anyway, if we start with a basic rhythm, we have di, ba, da, da. That's 4/8 notes, di, ba, da, da. Now notice I'm swinging the rhythm. I don't have to swing it. I could play it straight. Di, ba, da, da. You might have also heard ti, 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 ta, ta, or you might make up, you know, some other, phrase or whatnot. Piano, piano, yes, yes, or whatever it is that you want to do. You can apply any words to it. The di-bas, though, work extremely well for swung eighth notes, especially when we start getting into the upbeats as well. All right, but when deciding a rhythm to use, start with some basic rhythms. And here's a great exercise for you to do. Get an index card or several index cards or a sheet of paper, right, and just write down some basic rhythms for yourself. A great rhythm would be di, ba, da, da, 4/8 notes, 2 quarter notes. Do the reverse of that, da, da, di, ba. You can also do 4 quarter notes, da, 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 da. You can do 8/8 notes, di, ba, ba. All right? And then you can mix and mingle between those different rhythms. Now, let's talk about how you can apply those rhythms. Now, we were talking about before, like, we have that as the beginning of our melodic section. Or let's say we're going to do improvisation on this. Right? And we're ending on that F. Well, what can we do? We can try applying one of those rhythms. Let's use the di, ba, da, da. Di, ba, da, da. Okay? Now, you might say, well, Willie, that's kind of boring just playing on one note. Yeah, I'd agree with you. Of course it is. What if we end up doing some of those half step below or half step, whole step above? Let's try that. Di, ba, da, da. Okay? Now that's a lot more interesting, isn't it? In fact, if you even look at the melody, all right? Now, the melody actually is, okay? I always play it, our love is here to stay. But if you're singing it, our love is here to stay, it's up to you. I mean, I've heard it done both ways. But basically, you could see that in the melody right there, you're kind of just moving that, whole step up and then back down, all right? So you needed some place to go to be able to like have something different on the words. George Gershwin could have done, our love is here to stay. It's kind of boring though. So ended up moving up a whole step. And then rhythmically as well. Could have just done, our love is here to stay. No, obviously couldn't quite do that because of the lyrics. But you get the point. Adding in a different rhythm and then also doing these little motions of up or down a half whole step, it provides some excitement to the melody and to your improvisation. So if we're doing the same thing, let's take that. So there, I did that backwards melodic pattern, and I could do that as well. Di-ba, da, da. Okay? So once again, I'm just taking the notes of the melody, but now I'm starting to rhythmicize. I hate using that word, but it's a good way of understanding. I'm taking that one note, that F, and I am applying a rhythm to that note. All right? So rather than just holding it out for 4 beats, I'm applying a rhythm. Now, I took one of my rhythms that I wrote out. I have it in my head right now, but I wrote them out, okay, in my mind, and I say, okay, dee, ba, da, da. There's one of my rhythms. What was one of the other rhythms? Da, da, dee, ba, dee, ba. You do that? Da, da, dee, ba, dee, ba. Now remember, the melody is, okay? Now, let's talk for a second about, let's say that you don't want to do necessarily just full-blown improvisation. When you're playing the song, you can also throw in some of these rhythmic and melodic variations as well. Okay? So if I take, let me just take that whole first line. Okay? So just some basic stuff, just to provide a little bit of motion so the melody just doesn't just kind of sit there for 4 beats doing nothing. All right? So this is a way in which you can create some melodic motion and some excitement. Same concepts for improvisation. So improvisation or playing the melody, it's really the same thing for right now. As we get into some more advanced stuff, then you'll hear that it starts to move away from the melody. But the rhythms that you can use, pretty much, the sky's the limit. I mean, you can pretty much choose whatever rhythms you want. We just took some basic rhythms for right now. I would suggest stick with those basic rhythms. So just dee, ba, da, da. There's one of them. Da, da, dee, ba. There's another one. Dee, ba, ba, ba. There's another one. Or da, 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 da. What I would do is I will write out those 4 rhythms. So if you're a member of the site or you purchase the DVD, you'll be able to download those rhythms and then also the other exercises that I'll have. All right? But by starting with those simple rhythms, now what it's allowing you to do is, okay, you have 3 things you have to think about. You got to think about what notes, you got to think about what rhythm, you got to think about your fingering and making sure you don't get jammed up with your fingers, all right? So now, if you already know what notes you're going to use, and now you have a specific rhythm that you're going to apply to those notes, right? Or I should say, you have a basket of notes that you can choose from, right? So we can choose, those half step belows or the whole step above. So I have some choices of notes. Now that I have that choice, that basket of choices of 3 notes, I have a specific rhythm. So now I don't have to have all this brain power. I can apply those notes to that specific rhythm, albeit that is basic for right now. Right? But if you're a beginning improviser, you need to structure your improvisation. If you don't structure your improvisation, then what's going to happen is you're going to start doing, you end up doing that, banging your fist because you get frustrated. It can be very frustrating. So you want to do it very methodical, break it down step by step like I'm telling you. Okay? So when we come back, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about fingering and avoiding some fingering problems. So I'll see you in the next chapter.